You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
By the time you're listening to this episode, we'll still be talking about the coronavirus and its effects on retail and the people who shop there. But sustainability is still a huge conversation point, especially as we look at our world and our place in it a little differently than we may have yesterday. We're all looking at how we can run our lives and our businesses most efficiently, financially and otherwise. Today, we're going to talk about trips and tools and finding energy and cost savings in stores to continue helping move your business forward successfully. Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Carolyn Schnare with NACS.
And I'm Jeff Lenard with NACS. Before we dive into today's program, we do want to note that a few things are different today. First off, we're all working remotely from home with our own recording studios and system set up. However, we still have the same awesome audio quality and content that we have for every other podcast. Second thing that's important to note is we're recording on March 26th. And the reason we mention that is there's a lot of things that are changing in the world, and we just want to let you know that this is the context for today's conversation.
So today we're going to talk about how you can save money, and that's especially critical in today's economic climate. And our guest today will walk us through that. Welcome, Jerry Lawson, National Manager of Energy Star Small Business with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So, Jerry, let's start off really simply. Can you walk us through what EPA's Energy Star program is all about?
I will do that. First, I would like to acknowledge that working with NACS has been really the most memorable, outstanding, fast-moving relationship I've had with an industry. It's just been because you're customer-facing, you're accessible, dynamic. So it's just been exciting for us. So wanted to say that. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Energy Star. Since 1992, we have been a voluntary market-based program. We're non-regulatory. We're at the Environmental Protection Agency to prevent pollution through energy efficiency when it's cost-effective. So our sort of our byline is pollution prevention at a profit. And we have staff specialists in lighting, commercial food service equipment, office equipment, etc. More than 40% of the Fortune 500 are Energy Star partners, as well as more than 10,000 small businesses. We have more than 300,000 commercial buildings benchmarking and tracking energy performance in our free online portfolio manager tool, which I'll say more about. Our partners and really Americans overall using Energy Star tools and products are saving more than $30 billion annually.
So, Jerry, you had mentioned that we work well together. So thank you for that compliment. So we probably should talk about what we're working on and why we're working on it. So I guess to tee up that, why convenience stores? Why should they be really interested in Energy Star? And what are we putting together that they might be interested in?
Well, I was impressed to learn that NACS and your members for a number of years have focused on plastics and recycling. And you came to us in August, which was impressive. We're usually out, reaching out. I think you saw in Energy Star an opportunity to help your members save money. We are focused on energy efficiency, but we also have a lot of information and work on water efficiency. And we have tools that track energy, water, and materials management or recycling. What's so exciting to us is I mentioned this portfolio manager tool. We actually have more than 2,000 convenience stores already using it, but they are, when they enter their utility billing data, square footage, some other factors, they will see an energy use index number. That's essentially energy use per square foot. So they see a national median number, they see a number for their convenience store, and they kind of can see how they rate. And then going forward, they can see changes as they become more efficient. These numbers will change. What is not available at the moment and what we're working on together is an Energy Star score on a 1 to 100 scale. 50s average. What this is, once we have a data collection survey administered by NACS, and we will receive anonymous data on participant stores and energy use, our contractors will develop a module or a subset of this tool unique to convenience stores. We have 20 or so of these modules for all different types of facilities. And the idea is to compare in the future a convenience store to convenience store on a national average basis. So this 1 to 100 number has another use, and that is, as a convenience store is efficient enough to score a 75, they will be eligible for their building to be certified. Now, and this would mean a plaque and other recognition that the store is in the upper 25% of energy efficiency for convenience stores nationally. One of the benefits is more than 92% of American consumers recognize the Energy Star logo and have a good feeling about it. So we love the idea of partnering and co-branding. You have credibility with millions of customers. We have a different type of credibility. We put those together. It's a good thing for your customers and your store owners and operators.
So, Jerry, one thing I wanted to kind of clarify, but also ask a question. So we talked about the energy score for store. So it's not for the whole company, it's per store, which also would break out where that is. Is it rural? Is it local? So in other words, you can compare with your region, your weather, whether you're a big store, a little store with gas. Can you clarify that for our listeners?
Yeah. Once you have an account and it's password protected, we've never been hacked. I think the bad guys would consider all this kind of boring information, but it's important to the owner operator. Once there is an account that has a score, Portfolio Manager is a very powerful online tool. Using your zip code for the store, it will factor out the bizarre weather that might be impacting your overall energy use. That is, an extremely warm winter or spring day, or a cool, very cool, wet spring or fall. Those would maybe lead you to believe that your store was more efficient or less efficient, and it's really just the weather. So Portfolio Manager looks at the 12 months of degree days, that is the heating and cooling days of the U.S. Weather Service. You don't have to do this. It's done behind the scenes in Portfolio Manager. And then it compares that to 30 years of U.S. Weather Service data for your zip code. And the anomalous weather is factored out. So you're really seeing the efficiency of the building without the undue impact of weather that would send you a false signal as to your return on investment or how efficient you were. The other thing with your zip code and your amount of energy used, your kilowatt hours, the Portfolio Manager goes into EPA's database of what your electric utility has reported to us, and it will multiply your kilowatt hours by what's called an emissions factor. That is the pollution per kilowatt hour of your utility. And it will calculate for you the greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollution related to your store's energy use. And that will be in your account. And you see that. Month by month with improvements, you will see the pollution you are preventing. If you have more than one store, more than one franchise, you can aggregate these numbers. One of your corporate members who has franchisees, with the permission and cooperation of the individual store owner, they could aggregate a total national corporate greenhouse gas emissions number if everyone wanted to do that. Likewise on dollar savings. So it's a very powerful tool, but once you put in your data and then keep it updated, either monthly or quarterly, you will have access to a lot of standard reporting within the tool. It will generate charts and graphs and forecasts and tell you how you're doing. and these are easily there. You can also do custom reporting if you wish.
And I think this really ties in well with a couple things that are going on now. We have the new NACS State of the Industry numbers, and they are all focused on benchmarking. How are you doing compared to the top quartile? How are you doing compared to the bottom quartile? How can you get better? These are tools that look at costs specifically with our NACS State of the Industry Enterprise. We look at P&L. We often look at what are the sales coming in and specifically what are the general costs. This allows you to dive in a lot deeper in terms of some of the utility costs. Another thing, Jerry, worth mentioning that you pointed out earlier is we know that sustainability is a huge issue, and it was a huge issue up until coronavirus really passed it as the issue. But the idea of sustainability, a key point of that is how do you save money to do good? And I think that's really the critical element of what Energy Star is doing. This is a way to save money at a time when a lot of businesses are stressed. So it may take a little work to import some of this stuff and go through and look at this whole treasure hunt. But there's real value that you can pull out of this in terms of how do you make your business better in terms of direct savings. And then the indirect savings, you had mentioned the idea of plaques. Not only do customers notice those, that the certification that you have spent resources or time to try to reduce your carbon footprint, but employees also notice. And when you're looking at a labor pool, whatever that labor pool is at the time, they want to see those things. So it's good for the business in terms of the bottom line, and it's good for the business in telling that story about sustainability, because sustainability is still a critical issue under all the other news that's going on now. So what are some of the early things that a retailer might be able to do to get started on all this?
Okay. Well, one is benchmarking. As I said, that tool is available now, Portfolio Manager. We would love to work with NACS and provide sort of dedicated webinars or tech support because your industry is so important to us. You have relatively high energy use per square foot, and there's a real opportunity. We've learned over the years that typically in commercial buildings, 30% of the energy that's paid for is wasted, essentially, through inefficiencies in the system or the equipment or operations. So there's some significant dollar savings available. We have been able to work with NACS on a convenience store edition of our action workbook for small business. And that will be online, I think, on your website pretty soon. And it's an edition of this workbook that is strictly for convenience stores. And it's full of how-to, talks about types of equipment and operating ideas, links to resources, how to work with contractors, financing, etc. So it is, in fact, for convenience stores. We also, you alluded to a treasure hunt or a treasure map. We have an annual campaign called the Treasure Hunt, but the treasure map for convenience stores is online today. We'll be doing a co-branded version with NACS with their logo. But the treasure map is sort of a consolidated version of the entire action workbook. In a few pages, you'll see many, many bullets, action items, links, tips, information that are actionable today, that could be downloaded, and you can start walking through your store and looking for what you've done and not done and maybe see some new ideas. It's really kind of a never-ending effort. It's like, sales and marketing. There's always new opportunity. The equipment gets better and better, more cost effective, better quality. So there's always some opportunity in efficiency.
So Jerry, with the speaking of the treasure hunt, so you have those, and we'll talk about where you can find them on the NACS website, but on the Energy Star website, which is full of so much information for convenience store owners, for those with other businesses. I know a lot of our retailers often own a restaurants or other businesses that are either similar or sometimes completely different from convenience stores, but there's also resources for homeowners. So treasure hunts are really neat, and you have them for several different sectors.
That's
correct?
Right. We have treasure maps for vehicle dealerships, for restaurants, for grocery stores, and as close as some people may consider a grocery store, and maybe I did in the past. I thought a convenience store was a small grocery store. We've learned a lot from you in the last few months, necessitating special information for convenience stores. But we do have other information for hotels, for homeowners, for tenants, because this 30% savings potential, oddly enough, holds pretty much across most building types, commercial, residential, industrial. It's just what we've learned over 20 years is that there's just some built-in inefficiencies in operations and equipment and then the facility itself. So, yeah, it makes my job very interesting to be able to work with all types of industries. I also work with worship facilities or the faith community, and that's a different sort of situation.
Yeah, in our industry, with the growth of food, clearly there's more in the way of open air coolers. There's more in the way of coolers, freezers, etc. Our utility load is more than a grocery store when you look at it on a per square foot level. So the time is right to look at all these ways to save money, because as our industry continues to grow in offering things that are not necessarily that shelf stable product, you're seeing a lot of ways to make that equipment more efficient. And when you mentioned 30%, that number is astounding. That because we all know that utilities is in that top 3 in every retailer in terms of expenses. So looking at that, particularly at a time when people are looking to either always grow revenue or reduce expenses, this is a way to take some significant costs out of your system, perhaps at a time when you really need to look at that. So I think that the program that Energy Star offers and the brand recognition that Energy Star has with consumers, it's really helpful, I think, for retailers to dive into this stuff. And you can expect to learn more from NACS on how all this stuff will get rolled out beyond what we have on the Energy Star website. We're going to have to pause here because I don't have a real question, and I realized I was rambling.
How about I just jump in? Can I jump in and do that, or do you want to redo that?
Yes.
Okay.
So you just go to the question.
I'll just say something. Blake, we're putting your work in today. So Jerry, we've been working together on a lot of different things and different parts of this project for the last several months. And to echo what you said, it's been an absolute pleasure to see how fast this has all come together with your team. One of the things that I found really interesting is when we all sat together one day and we were talking about the different things in convenience stores, as you mentioned, the fast that you're learning how they're like a restaurant, but not quite. They're kind of like a supermarket, but not quite. And I think one of the things that Jeff and I and our team knew is coming in is that convenience stores are tiny little boxes with a whole lot of energy right on the inside, and energy more than just the people being all excited, but the energy of coolers and lighting and warming equipment and you name it. There's all this electronics and just heating, cooling happening in such a small box. One of the things that we stumbled around on, and I don't even know if we've even come up with a full answer, but is like refrigeration. How do we count that? How do our retailers and how does Energy Star look at it when it's an open air cooler, a behind the scenes cooler? Is it a refrigerated cooler case that someone opens customer facing, back facing with a beer cool cave on the other side of it? So I think we probably spent longer than I'm even rambling on here about like coolers in particular. So was there anything during our discovery process of how to name things and what should we call them and how should we classify them that stood out to you about a convenience store that's unique and that's maybe put your team to work a little harder on some of these things?
I think it's just the very dynamic nature of all the coolers being open and closed constantly, sort of food preparation going on, customers in and out, is just highly dynamic. So that's part of the purpose, or a big part of the purpose of our survey that you're going to help us with, is for us to learn more about what's really going on out in the convenience stores. I think, working with you and others, we have put together a good survey. We need a lot of your members to participate. We need the diversity of brands and geography and size and all the different variables. We need those represented in the survey. And the survey will teach us a lot. And ultimately, what's going on, and once the module is in Portfolio Manager, is that it will be convenience store comparing to convenience store. So it's kind of what type of refrigeration is predominantly out there will sort of set the standard. But then if there's a store using a sort of a different footprint or a different type of refrigeration or commercial food service equipment or lighting, they're ultimately competing against themselves. They will have their own baseline in a context of an average convenience store. But what really matters is where each convenience store starts. What is their baseline and what can they do about it? So on one hand, it's great to have the, comparison to the industry, but where the dollars really are at work is in trying to improve the operation and efficiency of that individual store. And that's where this Portfolio Manager tool comes in, the treasure map information, the action workbook. And I think you've seen in the last few months how working together on the treasure map and the action workbook, we keep improving them. So I wouldn't want to put a call out that when stores start using these tools, they will tell NACS and tell us what they're finding. Do we need to adjust something or update something, or what are we missing? These tools, we think of them as evergreen. They're always there to be improved. They're never in concrete. So once the tools are out, let's keep working together.
Jerry, you made me think of something too. One of the really cool features of Energy Star is that you also looking beyond the retail side of things, or the business, the building envelope side. You also rate products, and that's something that consumers would understand. I mean, you buy a new refrigerator for your house, you look at the Energy Star rating. I heard a commercial the other day that was talking about buy this product because the energy rating is really good. So where can listeners find things about the appliances they want to use, or the maybe the lighting they want to buy, the Energy Star ratings for those items?
EnergyStar.gov is the homepage, and we do a pretty good job of keeping it simple. At that homepage, you will see on the upper left the large link to products, or the URL is EnergyStar.gov/products. And there are dozens and dozens of types of products. There are suites of various types of commercial food service equipment, office equipment, lighting, heating, air conditioning, roofing. There's all kinds of consumer and business products that have earned the Energy Star label. It's a process that is objective, that vendors and manufacturers have to submit a product for consideration. And our products people take their time, and we work back and forth with industry. Say, when I think we started with desktop computers in the 90s, and we have many times gone back and upped the requirement for what earns the label. We have a whole team that works with new homes, so you can buy a new Energy Star home. Not all of us are going to buy a home, so there is a home improvement page for people, likewise for tenants. So then, as with commercial buildings, with convenience stores, we also work with industry, with the manufacturers of automobiles and various food product manufacturers can earn Energy Star for their manufacturing processes. So we really try to reach across the economy on supply side, demand side, consumers, manufacturers, and work with all of them because they all have standards that can be improved upon. And what's great is we all kind of have our specializations and we learn from our industry partners and keep improving.
Jerry Lawson from Energy Star, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.